Um, Sumit asked me to talk. Actually, he wanted Anand and I here today. They came up with this cheesy title, not me. It's unfortunate we're not going to be able to put up the show that we promised. I think he wanted Anand and I to have a face-off in front of you, given it's never happened before. And that's not happening today. Anand's in the US, so I don't know whichever one of us is the yin or the yang, but I'm here. And so I've kind of changed the story here a little bit around, and thought I'd instead talk about lessons from 3 years of running a computer vision startup. Just insights about the way we've gone about building this business. For those of you that don't know, Math Street Den is a computer vision startup. We teach machines how to see. We started off, Anand and I moved back from the Valley about a little over 3 years ago. He is a neuroscientist and a neuromorphic engineer that spent quite his career working with DARPA in the US and Stanford. And I come from a background in product design and business. I've worked with Intel for over 8-9 years in the Valley, and then kind of moved over to India to start this company. So before I jump onto the talk, I just wanted to say my mom is 65 and she can use chatbots. She can use everything. So she can book an Uber. So all moms don't not know how to use AI or tech is not true. I just wanted to quickly address that. To say that we've reached peak AI, I think would be an understatement, right? Every time I think about AI, I love to use this picture, right? Because everything is AI and nothing is AI. On one hand, I think we have, the AI that's beating all the AlphaGo players out there. Us not even understanding how exactly they're beating them, given they're not playing by the rules. I think yesterday a bunch of AI actually beat some of the poker experts around the globe, right? You have that on one end. And then on the other hand, you kind of have companies that are creating new domain names with .ai, right? So everything is AI and nothing is AI. I think it's fair to say that that's kind of where all things AI are, especially today, right? We've definitely reached peak AI. Like, that's it. That's all I seem to see no matter which way I turn. That definitely was not the case, I must say, when we left the Valley about 4 years ago when we came back. One of the reasons we did come back was because we wanted to build a computer vision-based platform. And we actually did not think that we could be any other type of company at that point in the Valley other than a pure tech play. We thought that we would have tremendous opportunity to actually build out core tech and experiment and continue to do the research lab kind of stuff that we've done before. But to build a business, we weren't necessarily sure it was the right place to be. I'd spoken pretty extensively with the founders of Face.com, Light.com, Snaptel, and the story was pretty much the same, no matter where you went at that point. This was 2013, right? Founders building these fantastic businesses or developer platforms that didn't really last, right? Everybody ended up getting bought for their technology. Pretty much divvied up back in 2007, 2008, there was a little bit of a similar kind of an upswing in AI, specifically in vision, and almost all of them got bought out by the Googles and the Amazons of the world, right? And shut down. From a business perspective, for me, it was one of those things where even when we came here in 2013, it wasn't happening. It wasn't, the business around AI was not necessarily, or the products around AI were not necessarily as loud and as everywhere as they seem to be today, right? And since we are at a VC place, it only seemed right to be pulling up some CV Insights metrics around AI, right? So that's the acquisitions. Just it kind of exploded, right? This is a map of all the AI acquisitions that have happened, and you can start seeing, right? I think closer to 2011, 2012, except for Face.com, and like I said, around 2008, 2009, there was Light.com and Snaptel by Amazon. So there were a few here and there, but then look at that, it kind of pretty much exploded. Actually, there were more to the right. The cropping is not very well done, but there were much more to the right over there in terms of acquisitions. If you look at the financing, if you look at the money raised, right, this stops at 2015, but just look at that. In a matter of 4 years, right? And 2016, I know that this number is double, right? Yeah, exactly, it's double. So it's a little over 4 billion, the money that was invested in 2016. And it's only going to keep getting crazier, right? But if you take a pause and look at this particular chart, it's kind of a dead giveaway, because you realize that close to 75% of the investments are early stage, right? They're like almost 50% across the board have been seed, and roughly about 20-25% have been Series A, and that's pretty much most of where all the investments have gone, right? And then you have a handful, right? You've got a handful of them that ended up raising beyond Series A. But this is basically to prove the point, I think Pratyush was saying this a little while ago, which is super early days for AI, right? Anybody that says, like, all those reports I read in December about 2016 was the year of AI, right? You just want to laugh, because we've barely begun. We have barely begun, right? And the state or the stage of the companies that are out there are largely in this blue and orange space. Which kind of begs the question, I guess, right? Like, what's changed or what's changing? There have been so many AI winters. Just talk to some of the founders in computer vision and NLP, in the 2000s, in the late 90s, and they actually don't want to talk to you if you're an AI founder from now, right? There's a lot of bitterness. There's a lot of anger. I met the computer vision head of Amazon a couple of years ago. The guy who founded this company called Snaptel, which was also a visual search company back in the day, in the 2000s. And it doesn't matter who you go talk to, it's the same, right? Things did not go well, right? And of course, you can look at it from multiple different perspectives, right? You could look at it from the GPU computing perspective and go, well, the GPU thing really exploded around 2010, 2008, 2010-ish. Power efficiency, that had to fall in place. We needed mobile everywhere. Actually, one of the key reasons why a lot of the founders between 2005, 2010 stated why their businesses really did not take off was because they weren't seeing the kind of use case, they weren't seeing people doing the kind of things that they're doing today, right? The scale at which one takes photographs, Instagram, explains a lot. Were people taking the same kind of photographs and the same kind of, creating the same kind of content in 2005, 2008? Not so much. The iPhone was barely there to begin with, right? So user behavior had not yet fallen in place. Certain things on the mobile side of usage had not yet fallen in place, right? And then, of course, cloud computing. So from an infrastructure perspective, the story makes a lot of sense, right? We've come out of a lot of experiments have been done in the AI space, but actually deploying AI has been a serious issue for quite a while now, right? And it doesn't matter which founder you talk to from the past, the same story keeps coming back over and over and over again, is most people have not cracked the business of AI, right? What do you do when you build AI technology? Is something that people have not necessarily cracked across the globe, right? It takes, if you go back to the acquisition, which one was that? I remember when, MetaMind was going to be the next big thing in AI. The kind of hula hoop that there was surrounding MetaMind, and then they exited for 40 million with Salesforce. And the story was very clear, is that the founders decided that building the business around the core tech that they had built was a really hard proposition, and decided that that was not, the right thing for them, and then ended up getting acquired. Same thing for DeepMind, right? So I think we have a lot of stories of how, building core tech, not to say it's easy, this is where I'm glad Anand's not here, but, building the actual algorithms themselves, we've actually not had as much progress, I would argue, from, let's say, a few years ago or a few decades ago, right? Most of the work has happened in the form of infrastructure and compute falling in place, rather than the algorithms themselves fundamentally being very different today, right? Which begs the question, where does this go? Where do we go from here? I thought I'd speak about the two founding principles that Math Street Den was built on, and specifically talk about it in the context of the kinds of AI businesses we had to think about before we settled for the kind of AI business we decided to build. So the first founding principle, these two kind of represent Anand and me for the most part. This first one being me, right, which is build AI that lives and grows in the real world and solve problems people have and creates new habits, right? And the reason I bring this up here is because if you look at the AI side of the market, what's happened with the companies that have been creating AI for the last, I don't know, let's say for the last 5 to 10 years specifically, right? The algorithms themselves, like I mentioned, have been changing at a much slower pace than any of those press releases claim. I can tell you that much, right? But you've had more tools. People keep talking about the democratization of AI, right? We have all these tools. You've got Theano, you've got Caffe, you've got TensorFlow. You've got these series of tools that allow more people to actually build things using AI, right? Which opened up this developer community. So you've got so many different types of developer platforms today across the globe, right? You've got vision-based developer platforms, text and NLP-based developer platforms, so many different types of platforms. And interestingly, outside of India, it's been very different to watch how this panned out in India versus across the rest of the globe. Outside of India, the emphasis has very strongly been on the developer platform storyline. So let's take the example of, let's say, someone like Clarify, for example, which is a vision-based developer platform, right? Most of these platforms end up building modules, right? So you build a little bit of a clothing recognition module. You build a, people recognition module. You build something that detects a little bit of expressions, right? And what happens when, the fundamental premise of a lot of these platforms is you put something out there, you have access through an API, developers get to go build apps on top of it, and to a large extent, it's a form of collecting data, right? So for these developer platforms and for the AI that they've built to actually work on scale, they need access to more data. So the story of developer platforms is one of putting something out there so you have as many developers on it and you get as much data to the platform, right? Which is a bit of a catch-22 because what happens, and I'm going to give a very specific example in the case of Maths Den, retail is our first vertical within Maths Den. And we do it under the brand of View.ai. One of the first things that we found out as we have been working very closely with the retail industry is that there is no standard form of catalog imagery. Every single type of retailer has a different kind of catalog image, right? Some are with mannequins, some are with backgrounds, some are social commerce, which is user-generated content, some are with white backgrounds, right? And most of these developer platforms, well, let's not kid ourselves, we're still building narrow AI. So I'm already speaking from the assumption that we're not building the kind of AI that is generalizable, meaning you can't take AI that's been built to recognize shirts, throw it out in the wild and say, hey, go recognize people or go recognize movement. It breaks. In most cases, it breaks. Unless it's been built specifically for a very specific business, if you throw it out on open on scale, most likely ends up breaking, right? So the question then arises, when you do have a developer platform and you have opened it up to the public and you've got tens of thousands of developers out there that are building on top of your APIs, using your APIs, what happens when a user, let's take the case of visual search as an example, ends up taking a picture of a hanger, okay? You said it's a visual search. Find anything in your closet, find it online on our website, okay? And some e-commerce developer essentially integrates this feature. You take a picture of a piece of clothing that's hanging on a like let's just say on your wardrobe, right? You've got all kinds of hooks at the back, you've got clothing at the back, you've got wood at the back, there's a hanger and there's like a little thing hanging from there, right? The odds, but you've built your system, training it on the data that you could have access to. In most cases, you've gone and scraped retailers' websites. And so you have white background images that your system is used to detecting items off of. So you put an application out there, you're already as a developer AI platform far removed from the end user because you've got these thousands of developers building using your technology, right? You're already removed from the end user. End user uses your application, takes a picture of something that your platform is not necessarily ready to support. What happens? The experience breaks, right? So the whole developer platform conundrum has been a real issue because the whole idea is to get more data from the AI perspective, but you can only get more data if more people are using it, but you can't control the user and how they use and collect data, or the kinds of things they're taking pictures of, or the kinds of things they're using voice recognition to speak into their phone. You cannot control what the user does. Now, this was never a problem in the pre-AI days, because you could actually, you have an application and you could control it in the UI. With AI, you can't control it in the UI. You can make maybe some small changes and say, oops, sorry, or you could say, maybe this is not what you asked for, say no if this is not what you searched for, and the user is already annoyed. We did extensive consumer studies to understand how people were perceiving something like visual search. And we found out it's a new habit. You're creating a new habit, and they have zero. The threshold for learning something new is super low. So if you're going to give 10 wrong results, there you go, that app is gone, right? So as a conduit into data, that app is gone. So one of the first things I would say from a business standpoint, I know that there are many of you out here that are also trying to build AI companies. Ask yourself if a developer platform is what you want to build. It has its merits. It's not to say it does not have its merits, but the question really lies in, is that the kind of platform that you're looking to build, right? And for us, that was a sound big no. We did not want to build a developer platform, and we lost a lot of VC money because we said no. Almost every single B2B VC we went to, except for the two that we have, one of whom is sitting at the back, so go talk to them. Almost every single one of them we spoke to said, why are you not an APX company? Why are you not a developer platform? Where is your self-serve platform? And we stood our ground and said, no, we're not going to build a self-serve platform because there is no AI out there unless you put it out in a highly, highly contained and specifically designed form. You can't control the end user experience and you'll break it. And and we wanted to actually work very intensely with customers, with people that had data, with their end customers to actually build a vertically integrated solution stack. So that's the, kind of a hypothesis and a call that we made on the developer platform story. The other side of the story, we could have been a technology company, a pure play tech company, like the DeepMinds and the MetaMinds of the world, right? And that's something that we could have done in the Valley itself. But again, as a conscious move, we said no, because one of the goals that we wanted to achieve is seeing something like this very closely live in the real world, which means that learning happens in the real world, and you as the person building the AI has the ability to actually continually make your system a learning system before the user is too frustrated, right? And the farther you move away from the end user, the harder it's going to be for you to actually build systems that people can be happy using. So we wanted to be as close to the people that both control the data as well as are the decision makers in order to build such a system. So we decided to go after our platform story by doing one vertical after another. So we structured ourselves as a hardcore B2B enterprise company, a high-end SaaS company, saying we'll go work with one customer after another, one company and one retail at a time, one vertical at a time, and find a way to build out our use cases. And it's slow and painful, that model of building a business. It takes into account the fact that AI is for the long run, right? So the kind of patience you require to go and convince a customer to see value in the kind of things you're building is something completely different. So the B2B enterprise side of the story has its own set of challenges, but it's one where you can innovate and move on your core AI in a much faster way. And we've been able to do this leading up to, let's say, our second goal, right? Which has been to build AI that scales and have a roadmap for building more generalizable forms of AI. Now imagine, Anand is a neuroscientist. I don't know, most of you here have not met him. Some of you may have met him, but he's a neuroscientist. Yeah. So, I mean, and then that says a lot. And by that, being someone that walks up to him and says, he wanted to build a first-person shooter game. That's what he wanted to build. When he said Matt Street Den, he said 3 years ago, he was like, let's build a first-person shooter game where, all those bots on the other side of the shooter game are all pre-planted, right? So what if they could be real living AI? AI that can live and learn, that are shot at, and that will come back to life because they figure out how to live inside that game, right? He was way ahead of his time, I can say that much, right? So, and here I am going, no, let's go do retail, right? And so it was an extremely hard sell for him to even figure out, say, okay, fine, let's go and try to build retail. And the only reason we ended up moving into retail was because it provided an avenue for us to build AI on scale. Which other vertical than something like retail to build something like AI on a large scale, right? And so the goal for him was to build generalizable AI systems, right? This was the second founding principle for us, was to say we don't want to build shirt recognition systems for the rest of our life. That is not what we're in the business of. We're not to take away from any of the chatbot conversations that have happened here, but we specifically did not want to build, there are millions of chatbots out there. You hardly know in many of those cases what they actually do, right? So we actually did not want to build a single user or a single use case or a very specific kind of an AI system. We wanted a system that continuously learns, that can contextually adapt, that can use multisensory input and go, if you take something that recognizes shirts, puts it in a mall, can it slowly eventually start looking at shirts, to multiple types of shirts to start understanding what's going on? Is that a woman? Is that a man? Where do these people exist? Are they walking up and down? Are they in a mall? What kind of setting it is, right? So much more contextually aware systems rather than the kind of narrow AI that we started with. And everybody has to start with at one point, right? Building a B2B enterprise kind of a business allowed us to slowly move up the chain from a very narrow problem, like let's recognize shirts and pants, to let's continue to move up and say, how do you start recognizing objects that have nothing to do with shirts and pants, but can learn from multiple different types of contexts, just like we humans do, right? How do you deduce things long before you actually see them? There's a car that goes by. The human mind, even if it moves really fast, and let's just say you have a dog looking out through the window, right? And it's moved really fast. Today, if you have a camera sitting and that's looking at it, chances are it doesn't know what's going on there because of the speed at which that car moved. But as a human, you have lived experience and you've seen that car move. You can guess that I saw a little bit of the hair and I saw something cute with the head out. Chances are it's a dog. Most AI can't do that today, right? So the road to building a generalizable system is another thing that allows you to sustain. Because tomorrow, if you're building only shirt recognition systems and businesses for the rest of your life, the speed at which we have new companies coming out there, 3 months later, there'll be someone else that builds a much better shirt recognition system, a shirt and a pant recognition system, and then you're screwed. So having a roadmap towards building generalizable systems continuously allows you to grow and continuously allows you to build AI that can grow with you and with your users and with their new habits. Those are the primary two founding principles that I wanted to talk about. From a challenges perspective, how many of you, do any of you read or follow Christopher Mims from New York Times? He posted about 2 weeks ago, I did not know this, but he posted about 2 weeks ago that the estimate of machine learning people in the world is at 5,000. That is scary. That's a scary thought, that there are 5,000 machine learning people across the globe today is an extremely scary thought. Because we have way more AI companies than we have ML people. So I'm not sure how we're pulling this. But that's a scary thought, right? So for me, the most important thing has been to continue to build an army of ML people around Anand, right? And unfortunately, I know that the panel was pretty torn on, the state of AI resources in India. Many of them are in Chennai. Don't come to Chennai. Being a university town, it's been fabulous being able to train people, right? Academia, I personally don't think is anywhere close to where it is in the US. Actually, US is over right now. Now it's the action is all in Paris and London, right? And Germany. That's where the AI, that's where it's happening right now for AI. And the academic resources that are present in Europe, you can't even begin comparing them right now to, leave alone India or the US, right? So being able to put together a really, really strong AI team, we have about, I would say about 18 to 20 AI people in a company of about 50 today. So 40% of them are core AI folks in computer vision and data science. Between Chennai and US. We'll hire in London and Paris later. But that was a big challenge for us, right? And to continually keep that at the forefront and use that to hire more and more AI people and to build that strong base was defensible base as a startup was really important for us, as challenging as it was. Customer awareness and value, I spoke about this really briefly, but Um, it's very hard to walk into a company and go, I build AI, trust me, it's going to do you good. It doesn't matter how amazing your AI product is, there is a ramp where you prove what this does, because it's about changing habits. Most customers actually don't understand what your product can do. Even if you have a fantastic demo that shows the use cases and all the ways in which they understand, kind of. It's always kind of. They don't really understand until you've integrated into their business, shown them ROI, shown them all those metrics, and things happen the way they happen. Particularly, of course, from a B2B perspective. From a B2C perspective, I think that challenge is possibly even more, because you're directly influencing the user habits and the consumer habit. And like I said, you break it once, getting them to come back to that app or that feature and getting them to use it again is extremely tough. So whether it is a B2B customer or a B2C consumer, this is a key challenge while building AI systems. New business models. Now, I think it's also important to say, given that a lot of the work in AI has been on the core technology space or on the platform side of things, there's barely been any exploration of business models, right? Companies that are out there in B2C, you know, especially let's say chatbots or you know, any other kind of customer service related AI or the big data AI that you see in finance, whichever one of those, it's very hard to charge for AI, because unless you're solving a very specific problem, and we recognize that through a very specific example when deploying visual search for an end consumer versus deploying visual search in a factory, night and day. Right? In the factory, where we have our AI and computer vision in the warehouses and a couple of factories in the US, it's completely different, because now they're talking about paying people in San Francisco. Yeah, that's happening. Or paying people in you know, the Northeast, right? And they're going, you know, we need to continue to hire. So and it's very hard, everything from training to everything. So how do you help them save on operational costs? Right? How do you help their existing people in the warehouse do this a lot easier? So imagine someone coming to a warehouse, throwing a piece of clothing on the floor on a white background paper, right? Taking a picture of it. The guy could care less that it needs to be straight or not. But they're recording this piece of dress that they've got there in the warehouse, right? And it's all crumpled. Now when they move to the next station and they're taking these professional pictures of these clothing, right, as opposed to the not so great picture of that clothing, they're realizing that they're taking a lot of duplicates. They're realizing that there's a lot of redundancy in the operations, in the workflow, in factories, where all of a sudden ROI is so easily measurable. As opposed to on the consumer side, where I'm going to make the consumer experience really better. And then the person goes, okay, that's great, but like, where's my ROI, right? And so I think figuring out all the different ways in which business models work is a massive challenge as well in this space. Change is the only constant. Every new day I get links. You know, anytime there's a new company, somebody will immediately, like 10 people will send me links that morning. Right? Have you seen this company? Have you seen this company? Have you seen? And it's very hard to sift through noise and hype from reality, right? But I think that said, the one thing that we can know for sure is that change is the only constant in the space of AI. And knowing at what point you need to care about something changing versus, you know, should I build a bot because everyone's building a bot, or should I build a bot because there's a need to build a bot? I think it's a really important thing to understand what aspects of the change that's happening are real versus hype over there, right? Research, product delivery, this is the other thing again, processes within an organization. If you're an AI startup, at what point do you move out of research? At what point do you move into product? And at what point do you deliver? Is a serious question, because AI, given if you take the hypothesis that we're still largely in the space of research with AI, we've barely scratched the surface, meaning you have at least another 10 years of AI work before you start seeing intelligence that you can say is intelligence. You know the saying, we're currently in the phase of recognition in the field of AI. Our systems can recognize. You give them cameras, you give them eyes, they can see, and they can try to identify, okay, there are people in this room. The learning part is far down there, right? And so there's a lot of research that's required, continuous learning that has to happen continuous learning either in the creative space or rule-based space, right? It doesn't matter which angle you come at it, but the learning has to happen, which means a continuous investment in research to feed into product, to feed into delivery. And finally, who's here for the long haul? I think this has been a really important lesson for us is picking the people that understand that they're with us for the long haul, right? Knowing that you're here because you're not investing because I'm going to give you, 20 new retail customers tomorrow, although that's a key goal, but to actually say, no, you're building a computer vision platform and generalizable AI that you want to float multiple different types of verticals on top of that platform, and that takes time. And when you're barely scratching the surface of an industry like AI, to say that, you're looking at someone who's going to look at returns today or tomorrow, or like a B2C company, it functions very differently. The timeline for AI, I would love to see those graphs that I showed at the beginning of this talk. I'd love to see this, let's say, 3 years down the line, right? And if those companies are even on the map, I think it's a fair statement to say the kind of companies that we see today on the map and playing big, it's questionable if how many of them will survive and how many of them won't, and who, from an investor perspective, as well as from a team and an employee perspective, as well as from a customer perspective, who's there with them for the long run, right? In the interest of time, I'm going to breeze through this. This is something that I presented a recent while back. This is a very broad framework that we use at Math Street Done, but I've also shared it extensively previously, right? It helps to understand from a product perspective, given we did speak about research, product, and delivery. I ask myself constantly, how much time do you spend on research? How much resources do you spend at each of those stages? And how do you push that pipeline along? And some of these questions really help, right? Asking yourself, are you building this to make it faster? Are you building it to automate? Are you building for engagement or immersion, right? Reducing complexity. Giving humans a new ability. And this is a really hard one, because giving humans a new ability is the one that's definitely the long haul kind of thing. You got to stay with them as that behavioral change happens over time. Is it just there to play companion, predict future, or reduce error, right? And it'll be interesting to watch whether you do research, product, or development, whichever part of the pipeline you're in, or if you're there in all pieces of it, to ask yourself, whether from an ROI perspective or from a strategy perspective, it really helped us to continually go down this list and go, okay, which part of this are we doing? Which aspect of the vertical or the particular product we're building actually falls into these? And which one can you price some of these? How many are people willing to pay for, and how many are people not willing to pay for, right? I'm going to move past this really quickly, but again, another small framework that I'd come up with earlier to say, every time we say AI, everything is not AI, that there's a long road before you go down to learning and intelligent systems, right? Giving objects sensors, giving objects eyes, the ability to hear voices, right? Or understand, not even understand, just to collect, is just data collection, right? We're still there. We're still largely in recognition, barely beginning to collect data, train our systems to basically recognize. For the most part, that's the era we're in. And we have a long way to go. We're being aware and looking at more than just the one thing that it's recognizing, being adaptive. Once you understand context, how do you adapt to context? Predict. Now that you know that all different types of contexts can come, can you predict? Even if the situation is something that you've never seen before, can your AI predict, right? And then learn and become intelligent over time. So there's a really long road, which is why, you guys should go read this article that this investor from Playfair Capital wrote a couple of weeks ago on staying with AI for the long. Like, why should you take the long on AI, right? And it's a really important piece of the puzzle. I don't think we'll enable the basic sustenance of our AI companies if we don't take the long on AI. And finally, I constantly talk about humans versus machines, humans with machines. This is something that everybody is worried about. Everyone constantly thinks about terminators, killer robots, security breaches, privacy breaches, right? Just this morning, I saw somebody call the next world war as a giga war, right? I've actually never heard of that one before. Yeah, I know, exactly, yeah. I've not heard of that one before. So it's already happening. And I think it's important to stay cognizant of the fact that AI can go rogue, you know, and to put in the right kind of insurance as you're building those different types of AI. Right? And like you'll notice whatever I write about AI, I always finish with the possibilities are endless, because I think that's why it makes it a really, really exciting time to be in AI.
Thanks, Ashwini. We'll take a couple of questions. Okay.
Hey, Ashwini. So I had that question about one slide that you had on challenges on artificial intelligence, which read the cycle of a little more forward. This one. So the second last point, research, product, delivery. So, I really, I'm intrigued by your advice to AI startups. We have an AI startup as well, on how to probably roll a product into the market which does research, product, and delivery. But my question would be that what advice would you give to AI startups which are largely, rooted inside research and not have yet taken or manifested that into a product yet?
Yeah.
And a specific advice for them to, attract venture capital. I mean, a few companies in the Europe and Valley have done that, such as Vicarious in Valley, as well as DeepMind there in Europe. I don't know, but probably you correct me. Were they in the product stage? I think not. But they were in the research stage, yes. I see your organization, MadDead Labs, is in research, but then in product and delivery as well. They are probably completing the entire cycle. Yes.
It took us a while. We're at the end of year 3. We spent the first year, actually 3.5, if you really think about it. But we spent the first 2 years on just research, which is also why I came to India, because I knew how far $100,000 would go here versus in the Valley. And, Anand and I are serious type A personalities, so we did not want to take VC money early in the day. We wanted to spend a little bit of our own money building our own platform and understanding what aspects of the computer vision modules we were building was going to work, which has opportunity, which doesn't have opportunity. So we did a lot of that work before we actually, but then we did raise our seed round in 2015, right? And let me tell you, at least today, it was very different in 2014, 2015, and it's very different today. It's unbelievable how much has changed in such a short period of time. I'd argue that there are many VCs. If you're talking about India, there are many VCs that are...
Which would want to bank upon especially the research part.
Yes. So you essentially provision yourself as a seed stage tech company that's looking to explore the core tech capabilities that you have and look to see what kind of a vertical that you'd like to go after. Then that's a seed company right there. You'd need demos. You'd need to show your your...
Which we have, yes. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
And
okay, thank
I think everyone's looking for...
Thank you.
Yeah, so what is AI is actually a moving target.
Yes.
Right? So, when I was a student, they said, okay, chess playing is something humans can't do. So, IBM developed that system, beat the chess champion. There was a nice party. After that, that team was just dissolved. They said, no more of this work in this company. Then they built Jeopardy beating machine that's there. So again, the frontier has moved. Right? So in your opinion, what is the next big challenge? What do you think either your company or other people should focus on, like a big bet in this?
I think scalable systems. To me, at least at Mastery Den, I can tell you that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to build a scalable computer vision based AI system, and I see that as being the real challenge. Most of the kinds of AI that people are building today, actually, they do not scale. They break when they see new conditions. And building scalable AI systems within specific applications, within specific verticals, I see as the biggest challenge. And even if you take any of these examples, whether it's Jeopardy or whether it's chess or whether it's AlphaGo has actually taken a very different approach, which is interesting because everyone else has been a one-off. You hear all these, oh my God, this person broke this new record and it plays this particular thing, but what you don't see is that it's under very specific conditions, highly, highly, highly contained. You let that AI go in not contained, not highly controlled environments, and it's going to break. So I see the next biggest challenge as building the next company that builds the most scalable AI-based system, I think will be where the real bet is. It's all about scale. Thank you.